Hi guys, and welcome to episode 5 of Mental Improvement. I'm joined on the couch here with my good friend Dan Wheeler, who's going to basically talk us through his experiences with mental health. Dan, like myself, suffers from bipolar disorder, and that's pretty much all I'm going to say at this point, and let him do the rest of the talking. So Dan.
God, Jesus, straight in there.
Pretty much, yeah. I gave you when the podcast comes out, you get a really nice intro on that. But this one, yeah.
So bipolar.
Well, your experience with mental health, maybe even before the diagnosis.
So I'll tell you what, it's quite interesting. So I was brought up with mental health, always around me. So my mum, not at the time as a child that I knew of, but she was always very up and down, very kind of, some days in bed for days, sometimes top of the world, you know, and some days kind of in the middle. So I was always exposed to these highs and lows. No idea what they were when I'm talking 10, 11 years old. No idea what it was. And it wasn't until I was about, I think, 13, 14 where I was aware that my mum used to take medication for it. And I was also aware my nan and my granddad blatantly had depression. It was undiagnosed, and I think, we go back 2 generations, it certainly wasn't talked about, and I think if you weren't feeling right, you were just told to man up,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of language anyway. So my uncle's riddled with depression, and again, never talks about it because that's just the way it was, and still to this day won't really talk to me about it, and we don't really talk about it much anyway, but so that was my earliest exposure to it, and then I think I must have been 17, 18. I must have been 19 because I was driving. 19, I get a phone call that my mum's tried to stop herself. And I suppose that was really the first time I realised how bad it was for her. I mean, I don't speak to my mum. We've got a very, very terrible relationship, and it's not good in any way. And I haven't spoken to her since I was 19, actually, since that episode. And that's for multiple other reasons, but that was the pinnacle for me of going, fuck, this is quite serious stuff. I didn't realise quite how significant her issues were, certainly. And it was around that time she was diagnosed with bipolar. She was diagnosed with split personality as well, and some other health issues which are not mental health related, but all kind of came to a head at that point. And at that time, I felt relatively good in my skin. Certainly in my head, I didn't feel like I had any mental health issues. I certainly, looking back, had the odd low day where things were just couldn't see the wood for the trees. Things were just I'd feel very cloudy. I was just unmotivated. I'd spend a few days on the sofa just watching TV, but never really connected. I just thought I was just going through a bit of a low time, a bit of a demotivated patch.
Yeah.
Never really connected it to depression or anything like that. So that was kind of my earliest exposure to it. And like I said, I felt okay at that time. And when it happened to my mum, I remember thinking to myself, how can you possibly get to that point where you'd want to take your life? Like, I couldn't, at the time I just couldn't connect. How mentally fucked up have you got to be to want to take your own life? That I just couldn't connect. And at the time I couldn't connect to the point so bad that I just thought it was attention seeking. And I suppose that's when, that's the part of the fuel which caused our relationship to really break down. Because it turned out it was a cry for help rather than an actual attempt, so to speak. And either way, both very serious things, obviously. But for me at that time, being a teenager, very emotionally driven, I just couldn't connect to what was really going on, couldn't understand what was going on. And then fast forward 5, 6 years, fast forward 9, 10 years, Jesus. My own personal depression started to become quite significant. It must have been 6 years, sorry. About 25 it hit. And I'd have days when I was just so low, I just wouldn't get out of bed. I'd phone sick from work, just couldn't find the strength to get up and get out and do something. I just felt alone. I felt worthless, hopeless. Just no other word. I think low describes it quite well.
Yeah.
I just couldn't do what I wanted to do, and these episodes became just more and more frequent. Rather than once a 6 months, it was once a month, and then it just got to the point. And this combined with, at the time, extreme dieting, and at the time, drinking. At the time, recreational drugs back in my past. All these types of things certainly didn't add to the mix at all. And then it wasn't until I really got into the extreme bodybuilding side of things where things really took a turn for the worse, and almost 100%, without a shadow of a doubt, getting into the fitness industry was probably the number one trigger which kicked it all off to what evidently turned me to do the unthinkable decision, which was attempting my own life 2 years ago. So it was that the fitness industry fucked my head up. Eating disorders, low self-esteem, low confidence. To some extent, I kind of flipped between this low self-esteem, this low confidence, to this kind of almost I don't want to say God mentality, because I was never quite there, but high on life to the point where things were going so well, and then I'd come crashing down. Things were going so well again, I'd come crashing down. That combined with this huge hormonal mess up with dieting and lifting and supplements, all that type of shit. So it was just the perfect shitstorm, and then it got to the point where I was in a relationship with my wife, but at the time girlfriend, and we were just going through a rocky patch. I think because I was going through a rocky patch, and we broke up, and we were apart for 3 months. It was Christmas to February, and it was that third month where I basically spent the whole month in bed. Things were just got to a really, really low point. Work wasn't going great. Friendships weren't going well. In fact, work was going really bad. I just couldn't quite. I was going through a really stressful point in this new project I was working on. It just wasn't going the way I wanted it to, despite how hard I was trying. Then the relationship issues, combined with obviously suffering from depression anyway. And then it got to the point that this one night where I just thought, I can't do this anymore. My girlfriend will be better without me. My friends will be better without me. I can't handle this work. They'll be better off without me. I don't speak to my family anyway. So at the time I felt, well, they don't want me. So they've shown that enough already. So I might as well just call it a day. So I swallowed a packet of Valium, 40 tablets. Which is 400 milligrams of Valium and diazepam, and said my goodbyes, and then was woken up by the police charging through my bedroom, taken into the ambulance, and that was my first and only attempt of taking my own life. Thankfully, touch wood, I haven't been that low since. I've been the only time since I've been so low I've thought about taking. I actually went to the hospital to get some help, which we'll come on to in a moment, because that whole NHS system is so corrupt and fucked. Well, my experience of it anyway is. So that was February the 2nd, 2015. And then the day after I was diagnosed with bipolar.
What was a quick diagnosis?
Very quick diagnosis. Well, no, sorry. I was diagnosed with manic depression. Sorry, that's correct. I was diagnosed with manic depression. 4 months after that, I was diagnosed with bipolar.
Right.
Yeah, forgive me.
Well, I mean, to be fair, manic depression is pretty much bipolar. It's the word they give for it when they're not quite sure whether to give a formal diagnosis of bipolar. In my own experience, again, this might not be representative of the entire industry.
No. To be honest, it was quite. I think they got to the point where they didn't really know what it specifically was, because I was experienced these. I call them Superman days. We've discussed this before. I'd have these days where, I still do. They're less extreme now, but at the time I was these days where I was unstoppable. Life was my bitch. Everything was just I was just dominating every area of my life because I was just so on top of it. Nothing could bring me down. No negative comments was affecting me. Training was incredible. Life was just good, you know, and that would last maybe a week, and then I would come crashing down harder than a ton of bricks falling off the Empire State Building, you know, and then I'd be in bed for a week, you know, and well, not, but you get my point.
Yeah.
These massive highs and lows, and I suppose the biggest thing I've had to learn to do is to try and rein in the Superman days, and not let the lows get to as bad as they could do.
Okay. So once you received the diagnosis, did that cause any sudden shifts in your mindset or how you identify with yourself or anything like that?
Not so much, if I'm honest, because I kind of knew something obviously wasn't right,
yeah.
you know, and you do the whole classic Google doctor syndrome. I diagnosed myself, so I'd guessed, and given the fact my mum was bipolar, I thought, you know, it's probably likely to be this anyway.
Yeah.
And even when they said it out, they said, do you know what? They actually said we strongly believe it to be bipolar. We need to do some more tests.
Yeah.
And actually never went back to other tests.
Yeah.
So I'm just assuming I have bipolar. They've given me meds to take, and I never got on with the meds, so I'm still on medicated. I tried them for a while. Cottrell was the one that I tried.
The mood stabilisers.
The stabilisers, yeah, and they turned me into a zombie. I just did not like them at all. They turned me into an eating zombie.
Oh, okay.
So I ate and ate and ate. I just got uncontrollable eating. It was very bizarre. And I remember this after 4 days going back to the doctor and said, I cannot take these. They are turning me I'm going to be obese again quicker than you can. And he said, well, what would you prefer, to be suicidal or obese? And I went, suicidal. I'm not going back to being obese again. Like, that shit just not...
Yeah, suicidal comes and goes.
Well, this is what I said to him. I said, I feel suicidal all the time. I have waves of it, and I never want to be obese again. You have no idea what it's like. And to some extent, this is my interpretation of it. This is how I feel. I know this would not be a common thing, but being obese for me is worse than having depression.
Okay.
That's how I feel about it, because my life was hell when I was obese. Just how people spoke to me, how they treated me. I just found life to be very, very a massive struggle for that. More struggle than I do now living with depression.
Right. So, are there things that you kind of
What's
know?
your take?
My take on you know what? I've got this weird thing that being obese was never really that bad for me.
Okay.
Like,
that's interesting.
Yeah, I look back on it and I like, you know, when we talked on the other interview and you said you hit your rock bottom moment.
Yeah.
Like, mine wasn't a rock bottom moment. It was, but I covered a lot of it with humour. It was probably worse. I mean, the thing, like, my depression in it and all that sort of things, and is much more under control now that I'm not obese. I don't think that's the obesity. I think that's more the fact that, generally speaking, my diet's under more control. I have exercise and I have many other areas in which to focus my life. Back when I was obese, and I wasn't really doing much. I was the type of person who said he was busy when really he wasn't. He was just you know, watching TV. Not even binge watching, because that wasn't a thing back then. But yeah, I don't know. Like, the thing is, for me, it's because. I don't want this to sound in any way flippant, but because when I said it a minute ago, I'm like, oh, suicidal thoughts come and go.
Yeah.
Apart from the time that they don't, like
sure.
that, and that's something that I'm very careful not to be flippant about this, because I do severely understand the severity of it all. But yeah, definitely, for me, if someone was to plonk me in a depression tomorrow, my attitude would be, this too shall pass, or there's stuff I can do that makes it pass quicker. And I know how to handle that, and I know it can be done within a day. Even though it feels like you're in an endless tunnel while you're there, there's a little part of me that knows that it could be done at any moment. Whereas if you were to wake me up tomorrow and I was obese, and I know that I've got another 6, 12, 18-month journey ahead of me, I would probably find that harder. Yeah. So, yeah.
The thing someone said to me, about 6 months ago actually, and they were asking what my thoughts were on death, and was there an afterlife? That was the discussion. Religion was the main discussion. And as you know, I'm an atheist, and this particular person I was talking to was convinced there was an afterlife, and they then asked me, was I scared about dying, because I was so object to the idea of any afterlife. They thought I was so scared of death that I didn't want to believe that there could be, and there was this fear.
Right, okay.
And I've been thinking about this a lot, and I actually think if it wasn't for my depression, I wouldn't be the person I am today.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think about the whole process as a massive positive.
Yeah.
Because I'm able, A, to relate to so many more people now, which is amazing. But B, I've got this whole newfound outlook. It sounds so cheesy, but a newfound outlook on life.
Yeah.
It sounds bizarre, and it's not spiritual or anything, any bullshit like that, but it's that night I'd accepted I was going to die.
Mm-hmm.
That night I accepted I was going to call it a day. That night I accepted it's done. And I'd given up all hope, I'd given up on everything, and I look back at it now and I think, gee, how the fuck could I have even had these thoughts, you know, because now I'm in such a good place.
Yeah.
I couldn't possibly think.
Tell me
that.
5 things you've done positive since then. You've got about 100, but just pick 5 out the air.
Oh, married.
Yeah.
Clark. Kirsty's mum and dad, the best things in my life apart from Kirsty. My job, my clients.
Alright, so just and give me one that you have specifically done, one thing that you've done that was amazing since then.
Launch 80/20.
Yeah, so this, at that day, none of those chapters were written.
No.
And however you're looking at it.
See where you're going.
Yeah, however you're looking at it, like, it doesn't, this is what when people come to the suicidal point, you thought, I've got nothing left to offer. How much have you had to offer in those 2 years since then? What have you given in that amount of time? I'm no good to any of these people. Well, they bloody well think that you're good to them now. And it's so common. I've been in that exact same place. I thought my kids would be better off without me. The last time I tried to take my life was 8 years ago. Bearing it, so my kids are 10 and 12.
Sure.
They were 2 and 4.
Yeah.
And I honestly 100% believed that was that they would be better off without me. Now, you know, we talked on the other interview about having the Nerf fights with them and stuff, and all of those things that we've done, the holidays we've had together, the way I'm trying to educate them on, you know, nutrition and things like that, the way we've gone rock climbing, we've done all this stuff, all those chapters weren't yet written.
No.
And I was writing the book off on the bits that hadn't even, by saying there's nothing good left to come.
Yeah.
And whether you are 19 or 90, if you ever find yourself in that position, there is always the best parts of your story could still be unwritten.
Absolutely. I love that. It's a very good analogy. It's a good thing to think about at the time. That's very good.
It's just. I mean, I've seen how you've developed as a person and with the business over the last 2 years, and the idea of those things never coming to happen because of you not being an absolute rhino and being able to take that much Valium. It's ludicrous, and you know the idea of the things that are still yet to come.
It's just a walking irony, because I am a walking irony to some extent, because I strongly believe if I hadn't lost the weight, I wouldn't have attempted my life at any point.
Okay.
I think losing the weight led to becoming in the fitness industry, which led to a whole catalyst of peer pressure, low self-esteem, low confidence, hormonal ups and downs through the dieting, and I think that was a massive contributor to my depression, which ultimately led to taking my life, or attempting. But the irony is, if I hadn't have done that, and if I hadn't been weight training, and if I hadn't put the muscle I had, and taken the Valium, if I wasn't as big as I was, I would have definitely died.
Yeah.
So the whole irony of the thing is, it seemed to have just been, and I don't believe in fate, I don't believe in determinism, I don't believe any of this spiritual thing, but it does seem like it was a perfect storm to fail in a positive way that's led me to do so much more after than I was doing before.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, the idea of fate is there's a meaning to everything. You may not believe that there's a meaning to everything, but I'm sure you will believe that you can create a meaning to everything. So you've created a meaning to that. And someone who does believe in fate, often, I personally do. So I always look to bloody create a meaning for stuff, because it just has to be. Like earlier this year, I had my biggest spat of depression for 5 years. Like I'd been so on the level.
Why didn't you call me?
I don't know. I didn't call anybody. Do we call anybody?
No.
Do we?
No.
Like, I was like,
I'm telling you to still want to change it.
Feeling like this, I'd have known it was in my schedule, in my Google Calendar for next week, probably marked in mauve or something, and it said, I'm going to be depressed next week. And I phoned you and I gone, damn, I'm going to need you in 9 days' time. But in 9 days' time, actually, this is pretty much brings us to the sole reason why I do this, is the fact that when we need help the most, we're the absolute least likely to ask for it.
Yeah.
Which is what I was realising whilst I had that depression, and this is the meaning I've put to it, which is why I ended up launching this whole interview series and also the mental health circuit training that I do. Because the thing is, no one is instinctively coming because they don't know when you feel like, when you're feeling your worst, unless you actually reach out and tell somebody, nobody knows. People aren't just going to sit at home and have like a little bat symbol or spider sense or something go off. I don't know, Superman doesn't have that precognition thing, but no one's going to sit at home and go, you know what, Dan might be feeling like shit today.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, that if you have got a friend like that, then maybe from time to time check in with them.
Of course.
But I was lying there thinking, nobody's coming, and at the same time, equally, I'm not going to call anybody. I'm not going to, I told Alona, so she knew what to expect to come home to, maybe. But other than that, I talked about it a little bit on Instagram because I figured I'm always talking about the lessons I've learned and the things that I've done. But when I get into that low point, I'm not going to share that part of the story because it's just going to bring people down. And I actually felt like there was actually a responsibility to do that a little bit. But other than that, no, not talking to anybody. And it suddenly dawned on me. I'm like, maybe there's other people must be feeling like this. It's like, I'm sorry, it went from there's nobody coming to there's nobody coming. I'm like, I need to do something about this. Yeah. Like this is all happening for a reason. And I guess, the why I found in all of that was that actually, yes, maybe someone does need to create something proactive. Because, my experience with the NHS, and we're going to talk about yours in a second, but mine is it's a very reactive thing, and it's a very slowly reactive thing. And this needs proactivity. This needs someone, the day that you don't show up, someone else to be like, is everything all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's going to be the last time you said you've been, then the last time I felt close to suicidal was Christmas of last year. And literally the day before I was going on a cruise.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and Alona was at a Christmas party and I took myself off to A&E. And thankfully, because the A&E was so slow, I kind of sat there and ended up talking myself out of it, and I ended up home. Because, to be fair, if they'd have known I was suicidal, they'd have probably put me onto the 24-hour, 48-hour kind of watch list, which meant I wouldn't have been able to go on my holiday the next day. And this was all good, because even a suicidal brain does retain a degree of its logic.
Of course.
I don't know where I was going with this, but yeah, the point being is that when we are like that, we won't really go and reach out until we hit probably the moment after it's too late.
Yeah.
So you said about that the NHS system being corrupt and whatnot. What has been your experience?
Well, my experience has been 3 or 4 separate issues that have just been this domino effect of shit. So I suppose the best thing, my best experience with them was when I was in hospital recovering from my attempt. They amazingly, they didn't pump my stomach or anything because I was conscious. I was moving. So I'd swallowed the pills at about 2 a.m. ish, and the ambulance came in. Police ambulance came in around 6:30, 7 a.m. And I woke up and I walked into the ambulance and I walked into the hospital and I sat on the bed. They took the blood test and they were like, "Fuck, you got shit load of ice pan in your blood." We'd be pumping your stomach if you're unconscious, but you're not. We'll just monitor you for 12 hours and IV drip and all that type of thing. that care I got that day was impeccable. Just, I've never felt so much. Love is the wrong word, but caring. It was beautiful. It was amazing, and I commend every single nurse. Still speak to one of the nurses because she managed just to connect to me so well, and she wouldn't let me leave. I was going to leave and try again. Blah blah blah. I was in obviously a really bad place. And then that day, they booked me with a council worker to talk things through. I went on 2 weeks with, I forgot what they call it now, home care unit.
Yeah, I've been through the same one. They were called crisis team.
Crisis team. Yeah. Was it crisis? Yeah, but they came to see me at home every other day, and they gave me some antidepressants and they gave me my sleeping tablets because I wasn't sleeping very well, ironically. And that treatment was impeccable as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about 12 weeks after that, I was in a whole new world. It was brilliant, much better place than I was being in. We were back together, Kirsty and I, and just managed to, everything just seemed to be going the way it was. And so that was March time. That November, so this was 14 months ago, that November I had another spell and things were just really bad again. And they were just mimicking the first time round. And I thought, do you know what? I can't go through this again as much. I was almost able to know that I was going to go down that road again. I knew I was going to do it. These thoughts were coming in. I was planning what I was going to do. That's how bad it was getting to.
Okay.
And I managed to talk to Kirsty. I broke down. I managed to talk to Kirsty, and I was just like, you've got to give me some help. Otherwise, I'm going to do something silly again. And we went to A&E. Oh, fuck me, I wasn't expecting this. We went to A&E that day, and that night, shall I say? And I went to the reception. Forgive me, I went to the doctor first. I went to the doctor and said, I need some help. What do I do? She said, you've got to go to A&E. Like, now, I'll write you a letter. I'll explain the situation, your history, medication, I'll explain it. Give this letter to A&E, they'll see you straight away, they'll sort it. I was like, great. So we went to A&E, gave them the letter, the receptionist read the letter, just shook her head and said, just take a seat. I went, right, okay. And Kirsty couldn't quite believe what. It was obviously just a bad coincidence. I had a shitty receptionist, right? Someone who didn't love what they did. They just either she'd had a crap time or whatever it may be, but the response I got was not the helpful response. And we sat down and we were in there for 4 hours. And obviously put to the bottom of the list because I wasn't injured, I wasn't hurt, I was alive. And I managed to see one of the doctors. They brought one of the psych team down and spoke for them for about 10 minutes. And she said, there's nothing we can do until you attempt to take your life. And I just looked at her and I went, I've come here because I'm telling you I'm going to do it. I feel the worst I've ever felt in my life. I need some help. Can you help me? She said, there's nothing I can do at this moment until you come back and attempt it. And Kirsty was lost. I mean, she almost. I mean, she was incredibly emotional, as you can imagine. She didn't know what, she was uncontrollable with anger about this comment. And at that point, I just gone, fuck it, I just can't be bothered now. Like I just lost all hope from the whole thing. This last bit of strength I'd managed to muster up to go and ask for help was literally thrown in my face. And to hear that unless I take my life again, there's nothing they can do. I just couldn't believe it. And thankfully, Kirsty was there. Kirsty got parents to come around and they looked after me for a day and managed to work my way through it and got out the other side. And then again, a couple of weeks later, I was going low again. I went back to my doctor and I explained this situation. She said, look, I think you just encountered the wrong people.
Yeah.
Go back to, I went to St Peter's, which is up here. I went to another hospital, I've forgotten the name of it now, and unfortunately I had almost the exact same experience. The male nurse I spoke to this time said, mate, there's nothing we can do. You're fit and healthy, you're absolutely fine, you haven't hurt yourself. Unless you physically harm yourself right now, or you try and harm me, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
And I said, have I actually got to harm you for you to phone the psych team? And he said, yeah. And I said, do you realise how mental that is? And he went, yeah. Like I don't think we're geared up to deal with mental health.
No.
What's your experience?
Like the reason like that hit me so hard when you said that then is that I had the same. I had the same once. I've had a very mixed bag. I've got this opinion about the NHS at the moment that it's like when someone's in a relationship, they don't want to be in it, but they can't dump the other person.
Yes.
But so they do as bad a job as possible as a relationship, so that they turn around and dump it. I think that's what the NHS is doing at the moment. It's basically trying to be so bad, not from the nurses and the people on the ground doing the work, but from the top. I feel like it's getting run so badly that we're going to turn around and go, you know what, we'll take that private one because it's got to be better than this shit.
Yes.
And there's a combination of two things. There's one is there's not enough there, and the second one is we don't know what is there.
Yeah.
Like the crisis team, they were fantastic with me. The best thing I ever had, I didn't even go for, was a new doctor came to my local surgery and just pulled out my file and sent a primary care worker on every 2 weeks, half an hour at a time every 2 weeks, but she kind of taught me mindfulness, and it was literally like my gateway into actually being able to change the channel up here.
Brilliant.
And her first name's Vicky. I wish I could remember her surname. It's probably on a diary somewhere in my house, because one day I want to kind of like hunt her down and say, look, you changed my life way more than you realise. So that was brilliant, but on the whole, it's like, well, have you hurt yourself? No. Are you going to? No. Are you going to hurt anybody else? No. Okay, well, we'll do this. For example, I'm back under the care of the doctors at the moment. They're reevaluating whether or not I need to go back on medication because of that 5-month stint earlier in the year. That felt different to me, and I went off to the doctors, and I got my doctor on a bad day. He was full of flu. I think he was like, you know. But a younger doctor, a new doctor, and so I thought, it's a young man. He's got, you know, the opinion's changing on men's mental health. He'll know, but for me, it felt different. I had no energy, but not from the I can't be arsed, no energy. From it, I felt drained. So like I wanted blood tests. I was convinced it wasn't just all in my head this time.
Sure.
So I had to push for the blood tests. Got the blood tests, and they came back, and I'm actually a pillar of health.
Sure.
Yay! Damn me in this clean eating. He says when he's definitely having something dodgy later. But I'm in London. But so I ended up back at. So he basically passed me on to, because at that point I was thinking, like, as I drove out my drive that morning, that I just hope that a car comes around this corner and smashes into me and takes me out.
Right.
And the only reason I don't want that to happen is because I don't want the other person to have it on their conscience. But but at the time, it's almost like suicide would be so much easier if someone did the job for you. If you've ever read that book I wrote about, I sent you a copy of. It's pretty much what the story is about.
Right.
It's almost an autobiography.
Right. Okay.
But and that was what I said to him. I'm like, this is how I was feeling, and I think because he thought that I was potentially at harm to other people because of the way I said that. Like, I think the report went over that I wanted to cause like a 10-car pile-up or something. So I ended up with the crisis team on the phone to me that afternoon.
Okay.
But in the nature of bipolar disorder, I was fine by that afternoon.
Of course.
Which was a very quick turnaround. But I was like, you know what? I feel fine. It's like, they were like, well, this is what the doctor said. And I'm like, yeah, I said that to you this morning. I said, if you put me in front of that doctor right now, he wouldn't think I'm the same person.
No.
I don't feel like the same person. And they're like, right, well, if you're going to get you in for an appointment because of how you're feeling this morning, but, if you feel like this, you feel like you need it. And because, as I say, when you're down, you're least likely to ask help. At this point, I thought, you know what, with everything I've learned, let's have the appointment. Yeah. Because I wasn't emergent, that appointment took 6 weeks.
Right.
Which 6 weeks later, I go and see them, and this was 2 months ago now. And they basically, I see a primary care worker again, and they essentially they want to see how bad my symptoms are at the moment. So they gave me a 2-month mood diary to complete, which is like a roller coaster. It's had loads of days, all in the just below severe manic, which was quite. Okay. I got a lot done, but. So I've got to go back and take that next Thursday and basically have the psychiatrist. I'm going back to see the psychiatrist.
Sure.
But that whole process took 2 months of that, 6 weeks before that, and it had taken me probably 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks of being depressed before I actually took myself off to the doctor and said enough's enough, because this too shall pass wasn't working for me at the time. And so that's a long ass process, you know. And there's I work with a guy now who's part of the local mental health, I'm not sure if they're a hospital, but unit called the Hesketh Centre in Southport, and he said he's like asked about how it's been, and they've got something called the early interventions team now, which essentially wants to get people not necessarily they actually don't want them diagnosed because they don't like labels. This is why I always ask the question of having the label put on you, did it change anything? But they want to get people assessed by the right people when they're in their teens and stuff.
Right.
And turned around, and rather than being in the revolving door, which is by the time you've actually got seen, your symptoms are so bad that you go back out and then you're literally going to be coming back around again. So there is, I found through that there's a lot there, but it's just not, the information's not getting into people's hands. People aren't reading pamphlets in the doctors anymore. When you go to the doctors, you're sat there looking at your phone. But one thing that they said to me was that they've got the psych staff at the hospital, Ormskirk Hospital, where I go, but they didn't have the reception staff to make the appointments. And it's like, how, like, and it's like, yeah, because it's run with that sort of structure, and it's like it's run as a business and not as a kind of the people in it. Like that woman that helped me the most, she was passionate about her job.
She had her why.
She had her why. That doctor didn't have any reason other than to look through the files and see what patients he's got, and he's like, oh, this guy's been, because at the time I'd been reassessed for my medication, but like yourself, I hadn't gone back to the appointment to pick it up because I felt fine and I didn't want it. I don't want to be stable 100% of the time by being a zombie. And that is a very much each to their own. Like, if I do not advise anybody on medication, I'm not a doctor, I don't claim.
No, indeed.
So I won't advise anyone in that department, and I think the doctors are best situated for doing that.
They are, yeah.
But yeah, it's that time. There's not the response time. Unless you're literally on the way out, there's not the response time, and so much more could be done in the way of prevention rather than
so much more. And I think lifestyle is a big factor, just like everything else. I think Nikki Chapman, my colleague on 80/20, she's got this great phrase, and you would have heard it: your tribe gives you your vibe.
Yeah,
and it's so true. You know, when I'm around, I've had a few coincidences where I've started to feel low, and I've started to feel these episodes come on, and they just haven't come on to the point where I've still managed to go to a meeting or left the house, or whatever. And then I've been around these people, Kirsty, Nikki, Hannah, Jenny, these people I work with, and they've just brought me up. They brought me up and out of it, and I can't be depressed or low when I'm with these people because they're just so high, they're so infectious, they just give me that energy I need. And that's not to suggest that they stop it permanently, because a few days later I could have an episode. But they certainly, your lifestyle does determine. If these people weren't in my life, I'd just stay in bed, And I think you'll agree with this, is those manic episodes, we get so much shit done.
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
And I think we get so much stuff done, it works out in our favour.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't want to take that away. I'm very well aware that it puts me at a bit of a higher risk. But quick question: that list of people you just reamed off, every single one of them female?
Or run a female company.
Well, yeah, but are there any males in your life that help you with your mental health?
No.
That was what I was interested in.
That's an interesting. I never thought of it.
Yeah.
Well, apart from Kirsty's dad, I've got a great relationship with him. He means the world to me. But we don't ever. We don't ever talk about it because it's never something to talk about. The times we spend together with the family, we never really have alone time as much as I'd love to go to the pub with him, whatever it may be. But that's just not conversations which have ever come up. Maybe they should and could come up, but. It's you and I were very close to becoming part of the stat of 21 to 40. Is it?
I thought it was 18 to 30.
Is it 18 to 30?
Yeah, so we're both too old for that one.
We are now.
Yeah.
But
Well, I have been for 5 years.
I'm sure it's 21 to 40.
It might have changed since I last looked at it.
But it's either way, it's young men, isn't it? And I think videos like this. And
Man, I thought I was out of that bloody. I thought I was 5 years.
A few more years left.
I wouldn't have had the best 5 years of my life. I deviated outside of the bloody statistic.
It's scary though, isn't it? I mean, just think about it. The biggest killer in young men, it beats all cancers, it beats everything, is suicide.
Yeah.
And that is I find that mental. I find that I'm using mental in the wrong term.
Yeah.
And I know it's don't take it the wrong way, guys, but it's madness. I can't. It's probably not.
No, the thing is, all of these phrases, when we use them like that, it's like we obviously, when we use them in a more colloquial term, it's like they aren't the most appropriate words for.
They're not.
But thankfully, neither one of us is regulated by a governing body that's going to turn around and say that you've had your funding withdrawn if you're using them like that.
But it is so insane.
Oh my god!
It's so
bizarre.
Bizarre. There
Yes.
we go. Jesus. But it's not. It's stronger than bizarre. It's out of this world that the biggest killer of young men is suicide, depression.
Unfathomable.
Unfathomable.
I'll go with that one.
And inconceivable. It is crazy.
Yeah. And trust me, I had this period where I was fundraising for Mind, and on all of my social media, I was like, I mustn't use any of those phrases. And you just realise when your attention's on them, how much you actually do tend to.
You know, I don't think it matters. You know, I don't think
most people that are in that situation actually have a sense of humour.
Yes.
You have to, I have to. When people say, "Well, what's it like having bipolar disorder?" I'm like, it's brilliant. But it's terrible. Yeah. But it's brilliant. But it's terrible.
I have fun with people. Like after my episode where I attempted my life there, for about 6 months after that, and understandably, it's lovely to think about it actually. But obviously, Kirsty's parents, I don't see my family, so Kirsty's family is my family, and they were so conscious not to say anything.
In case it flipped text.
But also just saying something like the word suicide was like, we can't mention that because Dan's attempted, that word we can't say. And it got to the point I had to say something to get out of this because I could tell they were stepping on eggshells and they needn't be, but they felt they had to. And I would say, Marge would come down one day, she goes, "Oh, how are you feeling?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to kill myself today, so that's all good." And I would try and make a joke out of it, just to get over this hurdle. But I think you're right. I think most people in those scenarios, there's a humour to it. They almost develop a sense of humour to it because for me, it was such a out-of-body experience. I mean, looking back on it now, I can't even think that was me. It just seems so odd, and to even connect the two, that it's easy. It's easier just to make a joke out of it to get past it because it just seems so bizarre.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything that you know now that you wish you knew back then?
Back when?
When you were, well, in the depression leading up to the detention.
Just before. Anything I wish I knew back then. I suppose you've touched on it in terms of, it's even in your deepest, darkest moments, it's never ever as bad as you think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Never as bad as you think it is. I genuinely felt that the world would be better if I wasn't here. These were genuine, sincere. That's why I proceeded with what I did. I genuinely thought my clients would be able to find a better coach.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Kirsty would be able to find a better boyfriend, husband. I genuinely felt so useless, worthless, and hopeless, like I was nothing. That what is the point? And I think when I was having those thoughts and just these ideas that the world is a better place without me, it's so not true, and it's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
And I know this now, obviously, but if I suppose maybe I need to record it, so if I ever have these times again, I can just play the video to myself. But I think everybody who watches this, and if hopefully we have a mark on somebody's life who's going through a struggle, is there's so much. You are so valued in this world. You may not feel like it, you may not realise it, but it's almost like a stone in a pond. The ripples. your ripples have a massive effect.
I've got a video like this that's already scheduled for a week on Monday. Really? I've got a ripple in the pond. It's already on my YouTube now. It's just set to scheduled.
But it is one. Even the faintest of ripples can have such a huge effect. You may feel that you're not making an impact in this world, but you really are. Mm-hmm. And I think again this comes back to kind of the previous podcast we did with the talking about sense of worth and how special everyone is I think depression stops us from realising just how amazing we are.
Yeah.
And if we focus on how amazing we are and how amazing we could be, then the world would literally change.
Awesome.
That's a good quote, isn't it?
I think I want to leave it on that.
Yeah.
I will ask you one more question. What would your advice be to men in particular, and to anybody, but particularly to men, because we don't talk about it enough. We want to change this statistic that is suffering.
Talk.
Yeah.
You've got to try and talk. Find any ounce of strength you can just to say to your mum, to your dad, to your best friend, to your girlfriend, to the bloke at the end of the road who's just walking his dog, to the postman, just say to someone, I need some help. Mm-hmm. I'm really, really struggling. I don't know what's going to happen. All I know is I need somebody to help me right now. And I think guys can get this idea that asking for help is a weakness and it's a vulnerability, which is a bad thing. I think you'll agree with this. Vulnerability is a massive strength.
Yeah,
it's a huge strength. And I don't know why we've got this idea that vulnerability is a weakness, because it's really not. It's the biggest strength you can have as a characteristic. It's showing vulnerability connects people together, and connecting people together is a massive positive. Just both of us now showing the vulnerability of our stories is going to, hopefully, someone will read this or watch this or listen to it and go, fuck, I can connect to that.
Yeah.
Go and make a phone call. Go and ask for help. And I think that this is just proof and point. Vulnerability is a strength. And if you're feeling vulnerable, what you should really try to do is just realise just how strong you are in that moment. And asking for help may seem hard to do, but it would literally save your life.
Okay, fantastic. Okay,
is that right?
That's absolutely perfect.
Appreciate it, bro.
Yeah. So, thanks guys for watching. As always, the aim of this podcast is to show how different parts of one man's story could be part of the puzzle for somebody else's. So if part of Dan's story has touched you in any way, then maybe part of your story could help touch somebody else. So we would love it if you would come forward and share with us. And I understand that there's this whole thing about vulnerability and about not wanting to come forward. So obviously, if you want to do that privately through messages or whatnot, and if you want to share this with someone who you think might need it, rather than obviously tag them in the post and say, this person's got depression, maybe just send it to them. Just send it to them as a link in Messenger. They don't, it doesn't need to be made public. Ideally, we want to get more people open and talking about it, and we want to remove this stigma, but while it's still there, let's do our best to work around it. Thanks for watching this episode of Mental Improvement, and I hope to see you guys soon.